AITA for canceling the ring after my fiancée asked for freedom before our wedding? I'm Justin, 30, a regular guy who had spent 7 years as Megan's boyfriend, long enough to know the difference between silence that needed comfort and silence that wanted control. We had routines that felt like a life. Sunday grocery runs, arguing over which comfort show deserved another rewatch, leaving dumb little notes on the shared calendar like, buy coffee or we become monsters, and Megan's dentist, pray for the receptionist. For a long time, those routines made me believe we were building something permanent. I knew how she liked her coffee when she was tired, which relatives she avoided at family dinners, and which blanket she stole every time we watched a movie. I thought knowing someone's habits meant I knew their heart too. I was wrong. Megan wasn't always the kind of person who turned love into a test. That's the part people forget when relationships go bad. Nobody stays 7 years because every day is miserable. Megan was funny, confident, and bright in a way that made people lean toward her when she talked. She could turn a boring dinner into a story people repeated for weeks. She remembered birthdays, made playlists for road trips, and could walk into a room full of strangers and make half of them feel like they had known her forever. That was the woman I fell in love with. She was also the woman our friends naturally sided with when anything happened because Megan cried beautifully. I don't mean that as an insult. She just had this way of sounding hurt that made people want to protect her before they asked what happened. I was quieter. I processed first, spoke later, and sometimes that made me look colder than I felt. At first, the little tests didn't look like tests. They looked like bad moods, insecurity, or one of those rough patches couples go through and then laugh about later. If we had an argument, Megan would go silent for the rest of the day. Not the, I need a few hours to cool off, kind of silent, but the posting on Instagram while ignoring my texts kind. The stories were always vague enough to deny. Protect your peace. Pay attention to who shows up when it matters. Some people only care when they're losing access to you. Then, when I asked if she wanted to talk, she'd say, so you saw it. I'd say, I saw it because you posted it. And she'd look at me like I had failed the real question. You shouldn't need a post to know I'm upset. I tried to be patient. I really did. I told myself she was emotional, not manipulative. I told myself everybody has rough edges. Mine was getting quiet when I was overwhelmed. Hers was wanting to be chased when she felt uncertain. But over time, uncertainty became her favorite weapon. If I didn't react the right way, she would push harder. One night, after a stupid argument about plans with our friends, she sat on the edge of the couch with her arms crossed and said, maybe if I stopped answering for a while, you'd notice how much I do for us. I remember pausing the show and taking a breath before answering. I notice. I just don't want us to communicate through punishment. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Punishment? Wow. So now I'm the villain for having feelings. That was how it usually went. I'd name the behavior. She'd make it about her feelings, and suddenly I was apologizing for the tone of a sentence instead of talking about the problem. Then came Caleb. Caleb was in the outer ring of our friend circle. Not close enough to come to every dinner, but close enough that nobody asked why he was there. He was good-looking, social, and a little too eager to be noticed. I never hated the guy. He liked attention, but he wasn't cruel. At least not from what I could tell. Megan started mentioning him after fights. Caleb said I looked tired today. Caleb noticed I changed my hair before you did. Caleb thinks I'm too nice sometimes. The first few times, I ignored it. Then one night she said, it's just nice when someone actually pays attention. I looked at her across the kitchen island. We had takeout containers open between us, and I suddenly wasn't hungry. Megan, I said, if you need more attention from me, say that. Don't drag some other guy into it like bait. She stared at me. You're so calm it's insulting. What do you want me to do? I want you to care. I do care. I'm standing here asking you to talk to me directly. No, she said, shaking her head. You're managing me. You always manage me. That one stuck with me. Because maybe sometimes I did sound like I was trying to manage the situation. But that was what happened after years of stepping carefully around emotional landmines. You stop saying what you feel and start saying what might not explode. I suggested counseling 2 times. Not as an insult. Not as a threat. I said we had patterns we couldn't seem to break on our own, and I was willing to sit in a room and talk through mine too. Megan looked offended both times. So now I'm broken? She asked the first time. No, I said. I think we're stuck. You mean I'm stuck? I mean us. The second time, she cried and said, I hate that you make loving me sound like work. I apologized. Again, that was my part in it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I handled every argument perfectly. I stayed too long in conversations that had no honest door out. I swallowed too much. I let Megan set the rules, then acted surprised when the rules kept changing. I thought if I stayed steady enough, she'd eventually feel safe. Instead, she learned that I would keep taking the exam. About 3 months before everything blew up, I started looking at rings. I didn't tell Megan. I didn't make a big production out of it. I just started paying attention when she showed me pictures online or commented on someone else's engagement. I saved a few ideas in my phone. I asked my sister, quietly, if I was crazy for thinking Megan and I were finally ready. My sister said, Do you feel ready, or do you feel tired? I laughed it off, but the question followed me around for weeks. Still, I paid the deposit on a ring. Not the whole thing, because I'm not insane, but enough that it felt real when the confirmation email hit my inbox. I booked a private dinner connected to our anniversary trip. I even had a note in my phone with half a proposal speech in it, rewritten about 20 times and still terrible. The speech started with, I don't know how to explain 7 years without making it sound smaller than it was. I hated it. I kept it anyway. My family knew I was thinking seriously about it. My mom kept texting me ring emojis like she was 12. My sister sent one message that said, Just make sure you're choosing peace, not potential. I didn't answer that one right away. Megan sensed something was different. She wasn't stupid. I was nervous, checking emails more than usual, being weird about the anniversary dinner, and trying too hard to act casual. I thought maybe she'd be excited if she suspected. Maybe she'd soften. Instead, she got restless. She started saying things like, Do you ever feel like we're just doing what everyone expects? I'd say, I think we should do what we want. Is there something you don't want? She'd shrug. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I don't even know who I am outside of us. That sounded serious, so I took it seriously. I asked what she needed. More time alone. More separate hobbies. Less pressure from family. A real conversation about whether marriage scared her. She hated every practical question. You always turn feelings into tasks, she said. I'm trying to understand what you're asking for. I shouldn't have to explain everything. That line became the warning sign I ignored too many times. The conversation about the break happened on a Thursday night, right before the weekend I had planned around our anniversary trip. We were in her kitchen. The dishwasher was running, and she was wiping a spotless counter like she needed something to do with her hands. She said, I think I need a real break. The word real landed hard. I didn't react at first. I just stood there with my jacket still on, keys in my hand. A real break, I repeated. She nodded, not looking at me. I need to know who I am without us. Okay, I said carefully. Are you asking for space, or are you ending the relationship? Her face tightened. Don't make this harder. I'm not. I'm asking what you mean. I mean, I need to not feel tied down right now. That sounds like ending the relationship. She finally looked at me then. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was controlled. Why are you making me say it like that? Because I'm not going to guess. She let out this small, bitter laugh. So you're just giving up? No, I said. I'm respecting what you asked for. That's so cold. I swallowed hard. There were about 5 different versions of me fighting to speak. One wanted to ask if she knew what weekend was coming. One wanted to tell her about the ring. One wanted to say, Please don't do this. And one, the quietest but strongest one, said, Don't audition for your own relationship. So I said, I'm not going to fight you for the right to be your boyfriend. She stared at me like she was waiting for the next line. There wasn't one. I left with the same jacket on, the same keys in my hand, and a ring deposit sitting in my email like a joke I had played on myself. That first night was ugly. Not loud. Just ugly in the private way heartbreak gets when nobody is watching. I sat on my couch, opened the note with the proposal speech, and read it until the words blurred. I listened to an old voice memo Megan had sent me months earlier, half laughing while she tried to remember what groceries we needed. I typed, Why am I not enough? And stared at it for a full minute before deleting it. I didn't chase her, but that doesn't mean I didn't sit there with my phone in my hand like an idiot. Around 2 a.m., I called Eric. Eric is my closest friend, and he has the rare ability to make advice sound less like a lecture and more like someone handing you a glass of water. He answered with a voice full of sleep and said, Somebody better be dead. Maybe my relationship. He woke up after that. I told him everything. The break. The wording. The fact that I had asked for clarity and she dodged. The ring. The dinner. The way she looked almost disappointed when I didn't beg. Eric was quiet for a few seconds. Then he said, "Do not send pain in writing." I wasn't going to. You were absolutely going to. I looked at the deleted text box still open on my phone. Maybe. Send facts, or send nothing. That sounds colder than I feel. Good, he said. Feelings pass. Screenshots don't. I almost laughed, but it came out wrong. He kept going. If she wants space, give her space all the way. Half space is just a leash. That sentence did something to me. Because that was exactly what I had been living with for years. Not together, not apart. Close enough to be responsible for her feelings. Never secure enough to trust the ground under me. The next morning, I started untangling our life. I didn't do it dramatically. I didn't post sad quotes or block everyone we knew. I made coffee, opened my laptop, and went down the list like a man canceling utilities after a storm. My card was saved on 2 streaming accounts we both used. I removed it. We had a shared storage unit with old camping gear, extra chairs, holiday decorations, and boxes neither of us had opened in years. I paid my half through the end of the month and emailed her a screenshot. We had a couple's gym plan that made no sense anymore, so I called and separated mine. I removed myself from the shared calendar after copying the few birthdays I still needed. The calendar hurt more than I expected. There were grocery reminders, trip dates, dinner plans, a note from Megan that said, "Justin, stop buying the weird salsa," and one anniversary dinner event I had made private so she wouldn't see the details. I hovered over delete for a long time. I didn't delete that one yet. I mailed her spare key back in a padded envelope with a short handwritten note. "Megan, returning this since you asked for a real break. I'll coordinate belongings and shared expenses by text. Justin." I read it twice to make sure there was no accusation hiding in it, then sealed the envelope before I could add anything stupid. By noon, Megan texted, "You mailed my key?" "Yes." "That feels unnecessary. You asked for a real break. I don't need access to your place. You're being weirdly formal. You asked for distance. I'm keeping it clean." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally she sent, "Wow." That was it. The anniversary trip was harder. Canceling my part cost money. Not a ruinous amount, but enough to sting. The person on the phone was polite in that careful customer service way people get when they can tell your life is falling apart, but they're not allowed to say anything about it. When the cancellation confirmation came through, I forwarded Megan the updated details. She replied, "You canceled already?" "I canceled my part. We could have talked about that." "We did talk. You said you needed a break from us." "You're punishing me." "No." I typed, then paused. Eric's voice came back. "Facts or nothing." I deleted the paragraph I wanted to send and wrote, "I'm making plans based on what you told me." She didn't respond for the rest of the day. Then the Instagram stories started. The first one was a close-up of a cocktail glass with a caption that said, "New Energy." I knew the restaurant. Of course I did. It was one Megan knew I liked. The one with the booth in the back where we had spent one of our anniversaries making fun of the tiny portions and then ordering fries somewhere else afterward. The next story showed 2 drinks. The third showed a man's hand near hers on the table. No face. No tag. Just enough. She did everything but write my name on the bait. I stared at it longer than I should have. My stomach did the stupid, jealous twist she probably wanted. I hated that it worked for even a second. Then I closed the app and put my phone face down. 10 minutes later, one of our mutual friends, Daniel, texted me. "You okay?" I didn't answer right away. Then another message came in. "Megan said you're acting like she cheated because she needed time." I rubbed my hand over my face and typed, "I'm not acting like anything. I'm giving her the break she asked for." Daniel replied, "She's really hurt, man. She said you just disappeared." I looked around my apartment, at the half-empty shelf where a few of her things used to sit, at the Ring email still unread for the day because I couldn't bring myself to open it again. "I didn't disappear," I wrote. "I stepped back because she asked me to." That became the sentence I sent more than once over the next week. Megan told the story first, and she told it well. To our friends, she was vulnerable and honest. I was cold and punishing. She only needed time. I had treated her like a stranger. She was trying to find herself, and I had given up without a fight. Her family heard a version too. Her older brother texted me, "I thought you were better than this." I didn't answer that one. Not yet. Her mom sent something longer, saying Megan was devastated and confused, and that after 7 years, she expected me to have more patience. That message sat heavy on me because I liked her family. They had always treated me like I was already part of the future. I typed 3 different responses and deleted all of them. Eric told me, "Not yet. She's making me look like I abandoned her." I know. So I just let that happen? For now, yes. Don't fight smoke. Wait for a wall. Sometimes Eric's advice sounded like something from a fortune cookie written by a divorce lawyer, but he was usually right. The wall started forming at a friend's birthday dinner. I had planned to go because it wasn't Megan's event, and I didn't want the break to turn into me vanishing from my own life. Then, an hour before, I saw a message in the group chat. "Megan, I might stop by later. Caleb may come too if that's okay." Nobody said anything for a full minute. Then Ashley replied, "Of course, babe." Ashley was Megan's best friend. She had been around since almost the beginning. She was funny in a sharp way, the kind of person who called cruelty honesty, and then acted confused when people bled. She had always liked giving relationship advice, especially advice that sounded like strategy. I could almost hear her voice behind that, "Of course, babe." Daniel texted me separately, "You still coming?" I looked at the group chat again. The trap wasn't even subtle. "Not tonight," I wrote. "Hope everyone has fun." He sent back, "You sure?" "Yeah." I stayed home, made a bad dinner out of eggs and toast, and watched half an episode of a show Megan hated. Around 10, my phone lit up with a voice memo from Megan. I shouldn't have played it. I did anyway. Her voice started soft. "I don't understand you right now. I really don't. I told you I needed time, and you just disappeared. Like 7 years meant nothing." There was a pause, the little rustle that meant she was moving the phone from one hand to the other. Then her voice sharpened. "I didn't think you'd actually move on. I thought you'd at least fight for us." I replayed that sentence 3 times. Not "I miss you." Not "I made a mistake." Not even "you misunderstood me." I didn't think you'd actually move on. She didn't sound like someone surprised I misunderstood her. She sounded like someone annoyed I didn't follow instructions. I saved the voice memo. Not to destroy her. That's what I told myself. I saved it because people were already asking me to defend myself against a story that kept changing shape. The next morning, I sent Megan one clear text. "I'm going to treat the break as a breakup unless you clearly say otherwise. I will only communicate about returning belongings, shared charges, and logistics." She responded almost immediately. "So now you're punishing me?" "No. I'm believing you." Unbelievable. I put the phone down and did not answer. That afternoon, I canceled the Ring payment plan. I had avoided the email for days, like not opening it meant the future inside it could stay alive. But after the voice memo, after the stories, after the birthday dinner setup, I understood something I should have understood earlier. Megan didn't need space from me. She needed leverage over the version of me who was about to choose her forever. The jewelry store kept part of the deposit. The rest came back as a refund. The confirmation email was short and painfully normal. "Your cancellation has been processed." I stared at that line for a long time. I thought canceling the ring would feel dramatic. It felt like taking off a backpack I forgot I was carrying. Then came the screenshot. It happened in the main group chat, the one with too many people and too many years of birthdays, dinners, trips, and inside jokes. Ashley sent an image. I didn't see it at first because I was in the shower. By the time I looked, the message had been deleted. But the chat had already exploded. "Daniel. Ashley, what the hell? Priya. Did you mean to send that here?" "Ashley. Wrong chat. Drop it." "Megan. Everyone stop." Then Eric texted me privately. "Now you know." Under it was the screenshot he had captured before Ashley deleted it. It was a private conversation between Ashley and Megan from before the break. "Ashley. If he loves you, he'll chase. If he doesn't, you'll know." "Megan. He's too comfortable. I need him scared enough to finally step up." "Ashley. Post Caleb. Nothing crazy. Just enough to make him remember other guys exist." "Megan. I don't want to lose Justin. I just want him to act like he could lose me." "Ashley. Make him think he can. Men only value what they have to chase." I read it once. Then again. Then I put the phone down because my hands had started shaking. There are certain betrayals that make you angry right away. This one made me quiet. Not calm. Quiet. There's a difference. For a week, I had been wondering if I was cruel for taking her words literally. For 7 years, I had wondered if I was too reserved, too practical, too slow to reassure her in the dramatic language she wanted. And there it was, in black and white, simple as a grocery list. Make him scared. Post Caleb. Make him chase. The break was never a break. It was a stage, and I had refused to perform. Eric called me before I could call him. You saw it, he asked. Yeah. You okay? No. Good answer. I let out a breath that almost turned into a laugh. I was going to propose. I know. She knew something was coming. Maybe not exactly, but she knew I was serious. Then she had a choice, Eric said. She could have talked to you. She chose a test. That was the part one couldn't get around. Fear of commitment would have been hard. It might have hurt, but I could have respected honesty. I could have sat with her and talked about pressure, marriage, expectations, all of it. Instead, she tried to make me feel like I could lose her, so I would become desperate enough to prove I deserved to keep her. That night, Megan called. I let it ring. She called again. Then she texted, "Can we talk before everyone turns this into something it isn't?" I stared at the message. Something it isn't. That was always the move. Reframe the thing until the edges blurred. I wrote back, "We can coordinate belongings and shared bills by text." Justin, don't do this. I'm not discussing the relationship by phone. You're going to believe one screenshot over 7 years. I'm believing your words in the screenshot and your words in the break conversation. She didn't answer for an hour. Then she wrote, "You don't understand what it feels like to be scared." I almost responded with a book. I wanted to tell her I had been scared for years. Scared of saying the wrong thing. Scared of not chasing enough. Scared of chasing too much. Scared that the person I loved only felt safe when I felt unstable. Instead, I wrote, "Fear is not permission to manipulate me." She sent a crying emoji. I didn't answer. The group did not magically become fair after the screenshot. Real life is messier than that. Some people apologized right away. Priya sent me, "I'm sorry. I believed her without asking you." Daniel called and said he should have stayed out of it. Others went quiet, which is its own kind of answer. One friend, Mark, texted, "I get why you're mad, but airing it in the group could make things worse." I wrote back, "I didn't air it. Ashley did." He replied, "You know what I mean." No, I didn't. Or maybe I did, and I was just tired of being asked to protect Megan's reputation while she used mine as a shield. A few days later, Megan arranged a group dinner. She didn't frame it that way, of course. It came through Daniel, who said people were getting pulled into different versions of the story, and maybe it would help if everyone cleared the air. I knew that was a terrible idea. I also knew Megan would keep using my absence as proof if I didn't show up. Eric said, "Don't go unless you know exactly what you're willing to say." I'm not going to attack her. I didn't say attack. I said know your line. My line is the truth. Then bring receipts. So I did. Not everything. I wasn't trying to dump 7 years of private pain into a group chat. I selected only what mattered. Megan saying she needed a real break. My text asking whether she meant space or a breakup. Her answer about needing to know who she was without us. The screenshot Ashley had accidentally sent. The voice memo line where Megan said she didn't think I'd actually move on. And my boundary text about logistics. No intimate messages. No insults. No messy archive. Just the parts that showed the difference between what she said and what she wanted everyone to believe. The dinner was at a casual place we had all been to a dozen times. Too bright. Too loud. Too normal for what was about to happen. Megan sat near the middle of the table, Ashley beside her like a defense attorney who had already lost the case but planned to object anyway. Caleb was there too, which surprised me. He looked uncomfortable from the second I walked in. Megan's eyes were red, but her makeup was perfect. That sounds petty, but I noticed because I knew her. She had prepared for a certain kind of scene. I sat at the far end next to Eric. For the first 20 minutes, everyone pretended to talk about normal things. Food. Work stories without naming details. Somebody's dog getting into a trash bag. The usual filler people use when the real conversation is sitting at the table with a knife. Then Megan put her napkin down and said, "I just can't keep doing this like I'm the one who destroyed everything." The table went quiet. I looked at her, but I didn't speak. She took that as permission. "I asked for time," she said, her voice trembling. "That's all." I was overwhelmed and scared, and Justin walked away like I meant nothing. 7 years, and he didn't even fight. He just started canceling things, removing himself from accounts, mailing my key like I was some stranger. Ashley put a hand on her arm. You were honest about needing space. Megan nodded, tears gathering. Exactly. I was honest, and he punished me for it. A couple of people looked at me, not all accusing, but waiting. Mark was the one who said it. Man, 7 years, and you didn't even fight for her. Eric shifted beside me, but I raised one hand slightly, just enough to tell him I had it. I looked at Megan. Do you want to tell them what you actually said, or do you want me to? Her face changed fast. Not completely, but enough that I saw it. Are you threatening me? She asked. No, I said. I'm giving you a chance to tell the truth before I do. Ashley scoffed. This is exactly what she means. You're acting like a prosecutor. I didn't look at Ashley. Megan. Megan wiped under one eye. I already told the truth. I needed time. You turned it into a breakup because you wanted to hurt me first. That was my line. I opened the group chat. My thumb hovered over send for 1 second. Not because I doubted the facts, but because once you stop protecting someone from the truth, you can't put the room back the way it was. Then I sent the screenshots and the trimmed voice memo. Phones lit up around the table. Nobody spoke at first. The restaurant kept moving around us. Plates hit tables. Someone laughed near the bar. A server asked a nearby table if they wanted another round. But our table went so quiet it felt sealed off. Priya read first. Her eyebrows pulled together. Daniel leaned closer to his phone. Mark stopped chewing. Megan stared at me like I had slapped her, even though I hadn't raised my voice once. I said, she asked for space. I gave her space. What she wanted was panic. Ashley grabbed her phone. You had no right to send that. You sent part of it first, Eric said calmly. That was an accident. And this was context, he said. Megan's voice broke. You made me look crazy. I looked at her, and for a second I saw the woman I loved. Not the test. Not the performance. Just Megan, scared and cornered by her own choices. That almost got me. Almost. No, I said. I showed them the game board. Caleb rubbed both hands over his face. I need to say something. Megan turned toward him. Caleb, don't. He shook his head. No, I'm not doing this. The table waited. He looked at me, embarrassed. She told me you were too comfortable. That she wanted you to see she had options. I thought it was just, I don't know, post-break flirting or something. I didn't know I was part of some test. Megan whispered, that's not fair. Caleb actually laughed once, without humor. To who? Ashley jumped in. It was supposed to make him show effort. That's all. Megan was scared. Sometimes guys don't understand what they have unless they think they're losing it. Priya looked at her. By lying to him. Ashley rolled her eyes. Oh my God, everyone's acting like she committed a crime. No, Daniel said quietly. But she lied to all of us about what happened. That was when Megan started crying for real. Not the controlled tears from earlier. Real crying, messy and angry. I didn't want to lose him, she said. I wanted him to care. I felt my throat tighten. Then you should have asked for care. Not created a situation where I had to prove it by humiliating myself. You never fight for anything, she snapped. I fought for this relationship for years. I just stopped fighting you for permission to stay in it. That landed harder than I expected. Even Ashley didn't have an immediate comeback. The dinner fell apart after that. People didn't storm out like a movie. It was more awkward and realistic. Priya said she needed air. Daniel asked for separate checks. Mark stared into his water like it had answers. Caleb left first after telling Megan, don't involve me anymore. Ashley called him dramatic. Nobody laughed. When I stood to leave, Megan grabbed my wrist. Not hard, just enough to stop me. Justin, she said, smaller now. Please. I looked down at her hand until she let go. I'll text you about the storage unit, I said. Then I left with Eric. Outside, the air felt colder than it was. I stood near Eric's car and took the first full breath I'd taken all night. He said, you okay? No. Still a good answer. I laughed for real that time, but it didn't last. The aftermath was not clean. A few friends apologized. Priya sent a long message saying she was sorry for assuming the worst and that Megan had made it sound like I abandoned her during a breakdown. Daniel called again and said, I should have asked you straight instead of letting the group decide. Mark sent, I think you were right, but that was too public. I almost ignored it, but then I wrote back. The lie was public. The correction matched the room. He didn't answer. Some people quietly distanced themselves from Megan and Ashley. Some kept trying to play both sides, which I expected. Groups don't split like glass. They stretch, warp, and get weird around the crack. Megan's family came next. Her brother sent another message, this time angrier. So you're humiliating her now? Nice. That was when I stopped letting the story travel without me. I didn't send insults. I didn't send emotional essays. I sent a timeline. Thursday, Megan told me she needed a real break and needed to know who she was without us. I asked whether she meant space or ending the relationship. She refused to clarify and told me not to make it harder. I said I would step back completely. Over the next few days, I returned her key, separated shared accounts, canceled my part of the trip, and limited communication to logistics. A screenshot from Megan and Ashley's private conversation showed the break was planned as a test to make me chase, including using Caleb to create jealousy. Megan's own voice memo said, "I didn't think you'd actually move on. I thought you'd at least fight for us." That was all. No name calling. No explanation of how much it hurt. No mention of the ring. I sent it to her brother and her mom after they messaged me directly. Her mom responded 2 days later. "I'm sorry. I didn't know all of that." Her brother didn't respond at all. Megan called me the same night her mom texted. I almost didn't answer. Then I did, because some part of me wanted to hear her say it plainly. She was crying before I said hello. "I was scared," she said. I leaned against the kitchen counter and closed my eyes. "I know." "No, you don't. Everyone expected us to get engaged. You were acting different. I could feel something coming, and I panicked. That was the conversation we should have had. I didn't know how. So you made me think you wanted out. I wanted to see if you'd fight for me." I opened my eyes. The kitchen was dark except for the light over the sink. There was one mug in the dish rack. Mine. Only mine. "Megan," I said, "I was going to propose." The silence on her end was immediate. "What?" "I paid a deposit on a ring. I had a dinner planned for the trip." She made a sound like she had been hit with something. "Justin, I canceled it. You didn't tell me. You asked me to leave before I could." She cried harder. A year earlier, that sound would have pulled me across town. It would have made me apologize for hurting her with consequences she created. It would have made me forget my own pain because hers was louder. This time, I stayed where I was. "I didn't want to lose you," she said. "Then you shouldn't have made losing you the test." I was scared of saying yes someday and then feeling trapped. I would have talked about that. "I know." "No," I said softly. "I don't think you did. I think you believed I'd always translate the worst version of your behavior into fear and forgive it." She sniffed. "Can we start over?" The question hurt more than the break had, because some stupid, loyal part of me still knew the shape of yes. It knew what it would feel like to go back to Sunday groceries and inside jokes and her feet under my leg during movies. It knew how easy it would be to call this a terrible mistake and pretend the test was just fear wearing a bad costume. But I also knew what going back would teach her. It would teach her that if the test failed badly enough, crying could reset the score. "No," I said. She went quiet. "I'm not restarting a relationship because you regret the result of your own test. That's it. For us, yes. I made one mistake." I let out a slow breath. No, the break was one event. The testing was a pattern. The lying afterward was a choice. Using Caleb was a choice. Letting people call me cold and heartless when you knew what you'd done was a choice. She didn't have an answer for that. I continued, because I needed to say it once, cleanly. I'm not innocent in every argument. I avoided some hard conversations. I got too quiet. I let resentment build instead of walking away sooner. But I'm done being guilty for refusing to panic. Megan whispered, "I miss you. I miss who we were when this didn't feel like an exam." We stayed on the phone for a few seconds, both breathing into a silence that used to mean comfort and now meant an ending. Then I said, "From now on, text only about belongings, shared charges, and final responsibilities. If people message me with the abandoned version of the story, I'll send the same timeline. Nothing extra. You're really going to be that cold? I'm going to be that clear." I hung up before she could pull me into another loop. The final logistics took about 2 weeks. Eric helped exchange the last of our belongings because I didn't trust myself to do it face-to-face without reopening something. Megan packed my things in 2 boxes, a hoodie, a few books, a phone charger, a framed photo from a trip I didn't remember leaving there, and a mug she had bought me after I complained that all of hers were too small. I packed hers too. Earrings from the bathroom drawer. A sweater from the back of my closet. The extra blanket she loved. A few skincare bottles she had left under the sink. I wrapped the breakable things better than I needed to, because being done didn't mean being cruel. The storage unit was simple. We split what was obviously individual, donated the old camping gear neither of us wanted, and closed the account. I sent my last Zelle transfer for a final shared expense with the note. Final shared expense. No heart. No explanation. Just done. The last thing I removed was the anniversary dinner. The private reservation was still sitting on my calendar because I had avoided looking at it. It popped up one morning as a reminder, cheerful and brutal. Anniversary dinner. I clicked delete. The screen asked if I was sure. For once I was. Megan texted me 3 days later. So that's it. You're really done. I stared at the message for a while. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because 7 years deserves a moment before the final door closes. Then I wrote back. No. You were done when you asked me to leave. I'm just the one who believed you. She didn't reply. I don't pretend I walked away untouched. I lost money on the ring deposit. I lost the future I had rehearsed in my head. I lost some friends who preferred the easier version where nobody had to admit they helped pressure the wrong person. And I lost the woman I loved, even if the version I loved had been disappearing for a long time. But I kept something too. I kept my self-respect. Megan wanted to see if I would chase her. She wanted panic, jealousy, and proof under threat of withdrawal. Instead, she watched me take her words seriously, cancel the life she thought I'd begged to keep, and choose a clean ending over another test I never agreed to take. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.